episode 80 of Chew on This, a Nerds United podcast. I'm BJ.
Vic. All right, before we get started on this review, I got to tell this story. So, for however many episodes now, we've been doing this Wawa thing, right? West Coast, hashtag West Coast Wawa. And this is a Wawa story. This is how much I love Wawa, and this is how much of a fat ass I am. So,
You get two for the price of one.
I go to Wawa, and it's late. I'm under the influence of something, and I'm going in there, and like I've said before, there's a touchscreen where you just order your sandwiches.
Mm-hmm.
This time I can't decide like which one I want because usually I get like the Italian and the meatball, as well as they also have warm sandwiches there. But then they had something else there that time that was different. I forget what it was, like a Reuben or some shit, like something weird.
Reuben on the rye.
Reuben or something different. I can't remember, but I wanted all three. Right, and I couldn't decide which one because I knew like if I went home and like had the sub, I was like, oh man, I wish I could have the Reuben.
I know what substance you were under now. I figured it out.
The Italian sub that I always loved. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna fucking buy all three. So I order three fucking different sandwiches, right? And I'm walking up to go pay for the ticket. And I'm pretending to be on my phone to say like, yeah, I'm ordering the sandwiches right now.
So you didn't look like a fat ass. You were buying three sandwiches for three people.
Because I also had a bag of chips.
Watch the guys why didn't you get 3 bags of chips? Why
you
only get 1 bag of chips?
Salt and vinegar I always have to have salt and vinegar with those. So anyway, that's my Wawa story. That's how much I love Wawa.
Why 1 bag of chips?
West Coast Wawa. Hashtag it everywhere. Okay, here we go.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2. When did the first one come out?
I have no clue. 2 years ago.
It was like 2.5.
Had to be like 2 years ago.
It was like 2014 or something like that. I remember watching the commercial for that, and over any other Marvel movie, I thought it just looked way different. And
oh yeah, definitely.
Looked like something that was really a lot of fun. And James Gunn is pretty well known making really quirky characters and dialogue and stuff like that. So I really thought that was a good mix. And then I think out of all the Marvel movies over the last few years, this one is one I've been probably waiting for the most, besides the Infinity War, because I just wanted something really fun and stuff like that. But anyway, so let's go over the boring stuff real quick, and then we can get our initial reactions. So what's it tracking at right now?
It's at 81%, which is it's certified fresh.
Okay.
It's been dropping though. We saw it.
What's
yesterday,
the highest it's been?
In the 90s, but that was like the first. The first reviews coming out. But you always like it's a trend. Like if you want the movie to stay certified fresh, you need to start in the 90s.
Right.
So it's certified fresh. It's 80%. It's kind of funny. When I was going to the movies, I was telling one friend, I was like, you know what? It's only at 84% because that's what it was yesterday. Mm-hmm. And they're like, only 84. And I'm like,
isn't that funny?
Yeah, like that's how high a mark Marvel is when it's like 80. Like, I'm pretty sure like Zack Snyder would give his left and right nut and fuck a sheep to get 84% of Justice League. Like you're like, what do I have to do? Kill my daughter?
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay.
Don't do that. Yeah. It's now at 28%. Yeah. Good job. No, I think it did. I was reading today. It did 17 million on Thursday night, which is really good.
It's on track to be like the biggest movie of the summer.
Yeah.
In the States.
Right.
Actually, it's doing pretty well overseas, but the Fate of the Furious is just killing it.
Yeah, they like those freaking cars, man. I don't get it.
I don't get it either, but. Anyway, so I'll do my initial reaction since you gave one last time.
Go for it.
I really liked the movie. It was fun. It was action packed. It was gorgeous, like the first movie. Yeah. I loved the continuing story of like a family type thing. I was actually thinking about the Fast and the Furious movie when I was watching this. I was like, oh, this is like Fast and the Furious outer space, and it's more believable.
Like Drax is Vin Diesel,
Yeah.
not Groot.
Right. Drax is a better actor too.
Yeah, right.
I I still can't believe. It was funny when the first movie came out that you got like Vin Diesel to say like, "I am Groot,"
Right.
and that's all he says, just different different tones in his voice.
Mm-hmm.
But then in this one, there's barely anything in here.
No.
And he's gonna get a shit ton of credit for it. It's like he says "I am Groot" like 6 times, right? And he's listed as part of the major cast.
He probably said it once, and
And
they
the
just
funny-
altered the audio each time.
Somebody else recorded it. James Gunn's like, we're not using that shit. I'm like, what is this? A pacifier? Fuck. But like the funniest parts of Baby Groot were him not talking. It was the way that they animated him.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the opening sequence was
Is
freaking
so
hilarious.
you have to watch this movie several times just to watch that opening sequence because there's so much going on.
Yeah. So anyway, my initial reaction is great. Everything is great about this movie, or I'm sorry, everything is good about this movie. It's not as good as the first one.
Yeah.
But it's still really fun.
Yeah.
This movie is really fun.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I found the movie extremely entertaining. I think it was a lot funnier this time
Yes.
around.
Almost to the point where it's like too funny.
Sometimes a little too much. But Dave Bautista is he stole the show.
He definitely did. He was actually everybody had like a funny line in this movie.
Yeah, or some cool thing, but
I think whenever the third movie comes out, this is where they need to cap the comedy,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, okay, this is the amount of jokes you put in the movie. Don't go above that, because like it was almost overkill. Like remember at the end of the movie when he was trying to find tape, and now it's like it was funny, but it was like okay,
Little
there's
too
a
much.
there's a major battle going on outside. He's really not. But here's the great part about it: like the Fast and the Furious movies. And like how Justin Lin set this family thing up for Fast and the Furious, James Gunn and that woman who initially wrote the screenplay,
Nicole Perlman or something like that. Yeah.
Like they set up this they set the tone for this type of movie. Like
Nah.
the opening sequence when you meet Peter Quill in the first movie when he's like dancing around with the
Soundtrack
tape.
going on. Yeah.
Yeah, like it set the tone for the whole movie, and because they established that in the first movie, like you're okay with a lot of these jokes going on in the second movie, and you're right, it's way funnier in the second movie.
Yeah, and they do play a lot with family. Family is probably one, if not the biggest theme in this particular movie, especially. So anyway, I'll just finish my initial reaction, and we can actually dive into the movie and the characters and all that good stuff. But so I don't want to go too negative here, but I found that it was very predictable. I think that I think the plot was pretty thin, but there's so much beautiful things to look at and funny moments and touching moments and all this other stuff that you kind of forgive it a little bit. Because like one of the problems that everyone's been talking about for a long time is that Marvel lacks really good baddies. But the baddie in this one I thought was far and above better than Ronan, because Ronan just seemed like a one-note guy in the first movie. He was just It was mostly about them getting together as a group more than fighting a baddie. But this movie, like, it has, you've got family that plays into it, and you have, the character of Kurt Russell is brought in, and he, is the foil in the end. But again, like, that's a minor nitpick. The movie has so much going on that you can kind of forgive that a little bit. But I really liked it. I loved the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I think this one I really, really enjoyed. I liked it. I do want to watch it multiple times because, again, there's so many things going on. There were so many funny moments that I couldn't hear the next line that was coming because everyone was laughing so hard, including myself. So I'm like, oh, shit, it's one of these movies I got to see twice because I didn't get the full effect. I couldn't hear everything that was going on.
Basically, almost every time Drax opens his mouth, he's saying something hilarious.
Oh my God. Yeah, we'll get into him and just we'll really dive into it. Anyway, my initial reaction is I liked it. So
I mean,
just like
so let's go on the negatives because we don't do
Okay.
that a lot with Marvel movies.
Right.
So the one thing you said that I completely agree with is that the plot was pretty thin. I mean, you knew you were going to meet Quill's father. And there's a couple of moments in there where it was almost like Civil War, where he's like, "You killed my mother."
Oh yeah.
I was like, "Oh fuck!" But you know what? I love Kurt Russell. Let me just say that
Yeah.
first. I love Kurt Russell.
He's
in basically
back in a
everything.
big bag way right now. He's back.
The I was almost I was borderline disappointed in Kurt Russell in this movie because not in his acting ability, but what they gave him to work with. Like it falls short. I mean, he is basically an entire planet, and what I love, Kurt Russell and how he acts and all that stuff, but I didn't feel like the material like it fell short for me.
Well, that might be
for
not be
Ego.
his fault though.
No. I meant I was disappointed in Kurt Russell's character.
Oh, gotcha. Not
And
himself.
No, not him. And then there was the one part I hated the most, and this is what we talk about Marvel movies too, is that the ending, the climactic battle or whatever, always falls short. I loved the whole planet thing when they were trying to fight the planet. That was new. That was unique. What I did not fucking like and borderline hated was they once again went to this blob planet thing where okay, so right off the bat, I thought of X-Men, the first movie, where where the thing in the Hudson River was gonna it was like electricity, but it was like electric blob. Type thing,
I hated
thing,
that thing. Yeah.
Right. Then there was Green Lantern.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I feel like there's another comic book movie out there that does this like end of the world bubble type shit thing. Like I don't remember. I can't think of it off the top of my head right now. But you know what I'm talking about? Like when they do this, and the blob thing just didn't work
Well,
right.
again, it's the end of the world situation, end of the galaxy situation this time. And, and they kind of like allude to the fact of like, well, we saved the galaxy once. If we save it a second time, we're going to make tons of money. So they kind of like brush it aside.
Yeah.
We're saving the galaxy again.
But you didn't get you didn't pick up on that, like when the
I
blobs
picked up.
come.
I didn't like anytime they showed that blob. So basically, what he's saying is, and I'm sure you guys have watched it. At least I hope you've watched it. But like Kurt Russell, he says at the end of the movie anyway that he placed all these like seeds or pods on all the planets, but you only see him do it once on Earth, and then you find out later on that he's trying to take over the entire galaxy, but he can't do that unless he has a son, a spawn, a child
A second
that he can
person
suck.
that has
Yeah.
the same energy as he
Yeah,
does.
to suck the energy out of that person would destroy all those other planets. And he had all these offspring, you find out, that weren't worthy. That's why there were skeletons. Yeah, there was a lot. And then when he found Peter, he's like, yes, I can do it. And that's where Peter is able to kind of overcome that. He uses his heart instead of his mind to kind of get out of that trance. And then he's like, you killed my mom.
Yeah.
Oh, because the guy says, I'm sorry. I feel bad. I put something.
Did
Or
everybody gasp in the theater? When you watched it?
oh yeah,
Everybody
everyone
out
went
there.
quiet, but he's just like, he's like, yeah, I felt really bad that I had to put the tumor in her head, and I was like, what the fuck?
Everybody in the theater at the same time was like,
Yeah, I was like, you kill that bitch now.
yeah, he fucking killed that guy. And he actually kind of did. He blew him to bits.
Oh yeah.
So funny thing is when you find out that Ego had been having all this offspring on all these different planets. So I'm a huge Futurama lover, right? Like I love Futurama.
Yeah.
And there's this one episode where Leela thinks she finds a Cyclops like her. Did you see this one?
Yeah, I did. I remember that.
He's actually a shapeshifter.
Shapeshifter, yeah.
And he's been like fucking all the other different
races.
Yeah.
And switch changing.
And he's like,
yeah.
he really looks like a grasshopper.
Yeah.
But he's a shape-shifting grasshopper. So
How disappointing.
I immediately thought of Futurama in that scene. And that has nothing to do with the movie. Like it's devastating in the movie itself because like I think about other things when I'm watching movies, I almost like chuckled at that scene, and I probably was the only one that thought of Futurama.
Well, I didn't think of that till you just said that, but yeah, he essentially, once you find out he went from planet to planet, you're like, oh, he must have made himself look like each of those species. He had to have.
Well, it didn't show that in the.
No, it didn't because you just saw him in his his human
well,
form.
yeah, I mean, he could have, but I only just thought of the shape-shifting grasshopper.
So speaking of the planet, like there was a scene that was pretty funny where Drax is just like, "So you have a penis? Like you're a planet and you have a penis?" That was really funny. But there was a time where they panned out from the planet and it was fucking Ego the planet, just like you see in the comic book. I was like, "Whoa, that's awesome looking."
That's when that's towards the end, right?
Yeah, but Marvel's so good at like taking those images that you know so well, like in the comics, and they put it on the screen, and you're like, "Holy shit, that's awesome!" It was really brief, but
yeah, I mean,
it was cool.
This movie is gorgeous as hell, and like, there's so many great, like you said, there's so many fucking awesome things to look at, and here's the good and bad thing about this movie is that you're so entertained with this movie, and there's so many fucking funny moments in this movie, but there's a lot of touching moments too in
Yes.
this movie, and they get you through the fact that like. Um, this is not probably the best plot in the world. Like,
No.
like I'm sure the people at Honest Trailers are gonna
Rip
this
this
movie,
thing apart. Oh,
rip
yeah,
this
yeah.
movie to the shreds. And you know we're focusing on the negative right now, but that's only because like the rest of the movie is so fucking.
Oh
good.
yeah,
There's not a lot of negatives in this movie.
no.
Um,
Well,
I mean, you could say the big baddie not being great is a pretty big negative,
mhm.
but even their interactions throughout, like how they established, they established it in the first movie of how much Peter loved his mother, right?
Yes.
So then when you find like, it doesn't matter that they didn't establish that father son relationship because the second he says, "I put that brain tumor
Yeah.
in your mom," you do. I don't know about you, but I immediately thought about that scene where she's reaching out to him.
Oh yeah, my switch went off in my head. I was
I
like,
was
"Kill that motherfucker right now!"
And I was like, I mean, that's how much you love the characters, right?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't even know Peter's mom.
No.
And you're just like, fucking kill that guy right now.
Well, okay, so that's the negatives, very little, but let's start with the good. I love that they gave Michael Rooker something to do in this.
loved him.
Yondu had
Loved him.
awesome character arc in this thing.
Yes.
Such an awesome.
Well, let's start from the beginning because I want to get to Yondu.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, Baby Groot. The whole
opening
intro,
sequence.
the whole intro. I wanted to like pick up Baby Groot and just like hug him. Like I'd end up getting like splinters and shit. I wanted to hug him so hard. Like he was so adorable.
He pierces you. He's like, "Oh, let
I
go."
was like, oh, I don't care. You're so cute.
Well, he like plugs in the music.
Yeah, and he just
and you're like,
dancing.
"Oh, that's genius."
Yeah.
Starts dancing. Everybody is fighting this huge beast.
And then what's crazy is the backed away scenes and the wide angle shots. They put those in the trailer, so you think when you first see that scene, you're like, oh, here comes that opening shot, or I'm sorry, here comes that part in the trailer where they're gonna fight this giant monster.
Yeah.
And then it completely flips on you where you're just focusing on fucking
Groot, yeah.
the whole thing. And you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of there's a scene in Face Off. And this is a more comical, where obviously that movie's more serious, but there's that scene where all the fighting is going around you. They're attacking that drug dealer's place.
Oh yeah,
And they put the headphones on that little kid, and he's just listening over the rainbow.
Over the Rainbow, right, from Wizard of Oz.
And it reminded me of the scene, like it was focusing on, obviously in Face Off, it was like, trying to take away from the violence of going on around him, and he's just focusing on the music, so it's not so violent. This is a little bit more funny, but I still thought of the same thing where you're focusing not on what's going on in the background.
Right.
And I was trying to, but like I couldn't take my eyes off of Groot.
It was a genius move. It was such a genius move. And then, once the intro was done, they actually had to, defeat that beast. And I love how Drax just like takes it upon himself. He's like, I'll go inside of it and kill it. And they're like, no, like that's not going to work. And then like, what's her name blows the thing up and he takes credit for it.
She takes the knife.
The knife. Cuts the neck down. Yeah. He takes when he's inside of it stabbing it. He's like, ah.
He's covered in his blood and shit.
Oh my god, it's Batista's amazing.
Oh yeah, he is so freaking good in this movie. Like, because he was like really dry in the first one.
Yes,
but that's why it worked, right? In this one, it's like
he's loosened up a little bit.
It almost feels like he took like a shit ton of acting classes. It was like night and day.
Yeah.
So bravo, Dave.
Oh my god. Well, he's still like, he doesn't quite understand. He takes everything literal.
Yeah.
But the way he was talking to Mantis, their dialogue just fucking killed me.
It worked.
It worked so well.
That scene where they're sitting on the stairs and she touches him, and she touches him about the daughter,
Yeah.
and she just starts bawling, and like how he's talking about his daughter. I was like, oh my god, like it. In the first one, he was almost like the Terminator. Everything was dry and like
Yeah.
almost
Yeah. I'm
monotone.
gonna kill Ronan. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this one, but I mean, it still worked. He did
Yeah,
a really
yeah.
good job. In this one, it's the same thing, but it's like up a notch. It's like so that scene where he's talking. Actually, everything with him and Mantis is like
It's
perfect.
so funny.
I love it.
He he basically called her ugly, and of course she kind of doesn't understand because she's been living on the planet for years. But
Yeah.
he's calling her ugly, and she's just kind of like, okay, is that a good thing or a bad
Yeah,
thing? You
she
know,
turns to Gamora. She's like, "We've been talking about his daughter or something, and I'm ugly or
yeah,
something like that."
yeah. But at the very end, he says you're beautiful, and then he's like on the inside. I got one of the biggest laughs.
Yeah, he's so great in it. Even like, I liked Gamora a lot more in this movie too.
I like all of them a lot
Yeah,
more.
there was nothing like that's the thing. There was like the only problem I did have with this movie is that the Quill and Rocket quarrel / subplot was resolved a little nonchalantly.
Yeah.
Considering how major it was in the beginning.
I don't think really they gave a lot for Peter Quill to do in this
I thought
one.
there was going to be a callback to remember in the beginning where they basically crashed because both of them were trying to pilot at the same time.
I thought they were going
thought
to
that
work
I thought they
together.
were gonna
Something was
pull
going
it
to
back.
happen. Yeah.
I'm kind of glad that they didn't because it was so obvious.
Yeah.
That they didn't. So yeah, you're right. Peter, even though the main baddie is his father, he didn't have too much to do.
No.
He was almost like the straight character in this movie.
He totally was. He was the Seinfeld. They had so let's go over the characters, but basically you had, Drax and Mantis were kind of together. The two sisters, Nebula and Gamora, had a thing going on. Rocket and Peter kind of had a thing going on. Then Rocket was like on his own with the Ravagers, and Yondu,
Right.
him and Yondu had a thing going.
Right.
They did a really interesting thing in this where they matched characters up that you wouldn't think would match up, and they did a fucking awesome job. The sister thing is like a normal thing, but it
I liked
worked
that.
really
Yeah.
well.
That's the thing about this is that you take away the entire ego planet, bad guy, and if there was no ending to this movie or no bad guy, I could just sit there and watch them talk to each other.
Yeah.
Like I could just see them. Like I could just watch. That's the other thing about like the Avenger movies, right? Like yeah, maybe Ultron wasn't that great, but I could just sit there for 2 hours and watch them talk around a coffee table.
Oh,
like when
yeah.
they're sitting down like fucking with each other
With the
about
hammer.
Thor's hammer. Yeah,
That was I
Yeah.
love shit like that.
That's they. But here and fuck, I hate doing this. This is why I love Marvel movies because like they get their characters. They understand who their characters are and they make the dialogue work. Like you're never gonna get Tony Stark to act like Captain America and vice versa because
Right.
it just doesn't work that way.
Right.
Captain America is not gonna go around cracking jokes and like fucking, trying to recruit people.
He's
Like,
straight laced.
yeah. So they understand the characters and they work within that and Marvel gets their characters.
But do you think, I know where you're going, but do you think beyond and above that, they also do things that us as fans always talk about or wish that we would be able to see something that, like, like you take your toys and you play them in the toy box and you're like, shoot Iron Man, shoot the shield and it ricochets
Yeah,
off.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you see shit where you're like, oh my God, like I've always dreamed about that or I never thought they were going to do that, and even just watching the Thor Ragnarok trailer was like fucking awesome. I don't know if you saw that on IMAX, but I saw it last night.
Yeah.
And it just watching some of this was like, oh my God, we get to see Thor and Hulk like fight in this arena. That's gonna be so badass. But like where was I going with this? But I like the fact that the dialogue or some of the things that they do are things that we as fans like do, or when we were kids, we'd play with these characters and we would do things. And you can tell that the director or the writers love these characters so much because they're having fun being who they are. They're not emo. I hate my life. I shouldn't be fighting for humans.
Well, that works. That works if that's the character. Is a thing. Like you're not going to get you're not going to get Rocket to have that type of conversation with somebody because Rocket just doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, he was kind of on a death wish in this movie.
Rocket.
Yeah, until they were like, "Dude, like we love you. Like, what are
Yeah.
you doing?" And then he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Let's see. Okay, so let's go to Yondu because I stopped you on that one.
Probably my favorite thing about this movie.
So I have a love hate thing with this Yondu thing in this movie. I loved his thing with Rocket basically every time like Yondu was talking or whatever. Like I just loved him in it. Michael Rooker killed it in this movie, and the the thing that I loved and hated the most about the Yondu story arc was the ending part where he dies. Spoilers.
Yeah.
Um, I loved that scene, and like but I hated that scene at the same time because
Mm-hmm. I wanted
You-
more.
well, for me it was him. He loved. You find out that he actually loves Peter,
Yes.
but the entire time he treated him like shit. You know, like in the first movie, he treated him like shit,
Mm-hmm.
and even in this movie, he told you like, yeah, he could fit into small spaces, steal stuff, but you also found out that Yondu was also beating the shit out of him too.
Okay, so there's a couple different things that I got out of this. One, you find out that his father was taking all these children and zapping their life out to funnel the planets, and it didn't work. So he took Peter for himself because he didn't want Peter he didn't want another child to die. So that's one. And two, I think he had to keep.
He pulled a Snape.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
He totally pulled us. Oh, fuck, that great pull. Yeah, he protected Peter, but he had to treat him like shit in order to protect him.
Oh, you know what? You're right.
Because otherwise the Ravagers would be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
Yeah,
why are you
yeah.
treating... But they even said at the end, they're like, you always treated Peter differently, and now we're pissed. Fuck you. You're
Right.
done.
But none of them knew why.
No. None of them knew why. He kept it secret.
And Sylvester Stallone was really good in this too.
Yeah.
It was a small part, but like it worked. It just worked.
Yeah. It wasn't like a...
Was that
like
Michelle Yao at the end of the movie?
That was Michelle Yao.
So like you were saying, like you know what? I take it back now because I kind of understand that part of it because he did pull a Snape, and the thing I loved the most about it was that like he's a hard ass from the first movie, but you see like at the end of the movie he kind of smiles when Peter fucks with him.
Yeah.
Time. And then, you see the Yondu thing. I'm like, why are they showing this Yondu thing with Sylvester Stallone's character? I'm like, this is fucking stupid. And like, oh, he's going to be exiled. I'm like, I don't give a shit. I was like, you did
You
all
find
that.
out why he got exiled.
Right. You do all this shit just because you want to pair him up with Rocket so that he can get back onto Ego. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then you find out exactly why he got exiled. So basically what happens is, well, you should know this. You guys fucking saw the movie. Otherwise you're stupid for listening to this. He basically took in a child and didn't give him back.
Mm-hmm.
And he took the money and he stole and he broke the code. I think that was the code that he broke.
Yeah,
right?
something like that.
What the Ravagers also have,
You don't deal in children.
yeah. What the Ravagers also have is an underlying code of I guess you don't mess with children,
Right.
and they come to find out that Yondu found out that Ego was killing all these children
That he was bringing to him, yeah.
Yeah, so he risked everything to keep Peter on because if Ego ever found that out, he could have snapped his finger and killed Yondu in a second.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then the part that killed me when he's like that, Ego might be your
Your father,
yeah,
but I'm your dad. Yeah,
yeah, but he's not your daddy.
But
or
he's not
something.
your daddy.
I was like, oh god damn it.
Yeah.
It
And then he
and
dies.
again, like what ruined it also for me is like again I can't turn my brain off. So I fucking thought of the scene in Armageddon where like Ben Affleck and Bruce Willis had that scene.
That was pretty good.
That's a good scene too.
Yeah.
But like because he goes from like there was no the problem with that was like it didn't feel forced,
Mm-hmm.
but there was no like
I felt like he could have been
settling.
saved.
Like there was no because
That's
in the
my
first
problem.
movie-
I think
in the
he could have
first-
been saved.
Well, in the first movie, like how long was Gamora sitting out there? She didn't fucking die. She was
No.
out there for like 5 fucking minutes.
Yeah. I felt like the ship was going to come along any second and pick him up. You
Yeah.
know, but
it worked for like what it was because like still at the end of the day he was still with his family. You know,
Yeah.
like he
It's kind of like in Toy Story 3, like if they're heading to the furnace and you're like, oh shit. And then Woody falls in, but the rest get saved.
they would never kill
They
him.
would never do that.
It'd be like Rex or Mrs. Potato Head.
Right. She gets baked.
Yeah.
Oh, she's a baked potato.
She like, oh my god, I don't know why, but I just pictured like melting plastic. Fucking so morbid.
They get her back and like half her face is just melted off. Like,
Yeah, she's got like all these new parts, but the potato part of it's all fucking melted. It's like Death Becomes Her. You ever seen the
she's
movie
like,
Death
she's like, I need a potato head burqa now.
Did you ever see Death Becomes Her?
Oh yeah,
That's like that.
yeah.
That's
It totally is
Potato-
like that.
Mrs. Potato Head becomes like Meryl Streep.
Meryl
and Death-
Streep.
and Death Becomes Her. How's that for pulling stuff?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, so you know, like all the movies that we love, I'm having a hard time to figure out what else to talk about this movie because it's so fucking
Yeah,
it's so fun.
I have to say, also, it was. I mean, we've said it before, but it is gorgeous. And if you could see it on IMAX, I'm sure it's
go see it.
ridiculous.
Don't go to a FOMAX. Fuck the FOMAXs. Go to an actual IMAX. Because I and it was in 3D. And normally I don't like. I'm not a big fan of 3D movies. Like even Civil War, I saw it in. I believe I
Unless
saw it
it's
in 3D.
filmed in 3D, there's no really
This
no
one
reason
wasn't filmed
to,
in 3D,
No.
but it was so goddamn gorgeous, and like the shots of the planets and everything, like you felt like you were there.
Oh, that's
in the
cool.
3D, so like that mattered. So another thing I had a problem, like the blob thing that I was talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. Let's go back to that stupid blob
I
thing.
was like, was that? I wonder if that was a cost-effective move because, to me, if you're planting a plant,
Mm-hmm.
this blue shit blob doesn't form out of it. It would be like it would almost be like a poison ivy type thing.
No one found it after 36 years.
Behind
that
the
thing's
dairy-
pretty like
behind the Dairy Queen.
it's just glowing.
behind the dairy.
Yeah,
Behind the Dairy Queen.
he didn't go that far off the road to
many
plant that.
How many Dairy Queens do you know still look like that after 80 years?
I think I thought that was like I thought that's where they filmed Harold and Kumar because I thought that looked like where the White Castle was.
That almost looked like the scene from like Masters of the Universe where they get the fried chicken.
Fried chicken. It's like the same location. They just
Yeah.
film over and over again.
Yeah.
But yeah, he didn't like hide that pod very far into the woods.
Well, you don't know how far they went, but still, the point being is like I was picturing plants like to sprout up and like all of a sudden start.
Yeah, that would have been
multiplying.
cooler.
But again, that might have been a cost-effective move because obviously it would have been way.
It would have turned into Mummy Returns, like a terrible CG with the plants and all that.
But it would have been. But I think it would have been costly. It would have been more costly to animate a shit ton of plants than just a fucking giant blob. They're like, hey, give us that shit from Green
you've already
Lantern.
paid like this movie costs like $200 million. It's just pretty insane. Which they're, I mean, after this weekend, we'll
I
make
would
it,
say like
make it back.
90% of the movie is probably filmed on a green screen, but like
Oh,
it's
yeah,
seamless
yeah.
though.
Yeah, it is pretty
it's
seamless.
That Weta or Weta did this.
They did? It wasn't ILM?
No, no.
Wow.
They're really good at
Yeah,
seamless special effects when they have the time to do it, like or they're doing a blockbuster movie like this.
Mm-hmm.
I would say sometimes their shit is just right on the same level as ILM.
If not better.
Yeah,
I mean, I
it's
always
like-
felt Lord of the Rings was better than the prequels.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
well,
it was the
I
same
think-
years they did
well,
those prequels.
I think that the problem with that also is that the one of the reasons why is because the movie was shot on film for Lord of the Rings, whereas Lucas
right.
shot on
It was also
digital.
done on like on location too.
Right, and there's real world effects. So yeah, there's multiple reasons why.
But yeah, this movie is gorgeous. I mean, my God. And it is pretty seamless. Like I had a hard time like when they would do a close ups of the two people like dialogue in Ego Planet and on the Ego Planet.
Yeah.
I was really trying to pay attention and you could barely see that they're on a set, on a green screen set. I mean, it was really well done.
I mean, I saw it on IMAX
Very
and I had a
unique.
hard time seeing it.
Yeah, really unique look to this movie. It's very colorful. If you you got the IMAX poster. If you look at that poster, it's really colorful. It's very like retro. It seems like this movie and Ragnarok, they're doing kind of this 80s rock and roll type feel to it.
It works here. I hope they don't do that for Ragnarok.
I hope they don't play the soundtrack. I liked it in the trailer though. But
The trailer works, but
yeah.
but because again, that's a different character.
Right.
Thor is not. Thor is almost between like Captain America and Drax as far as his
Yeah,
delivery is.
yeah, I agree.
And Hulk obviously is not a funny person.
No.
You know? So don't pull the other company and fucking start force feeding your characters into that like situations or dialogue that they would never say. Or
Say
do.
right.
I don't know what else to talk about this movie.
No, I
Just
think
other than-
it was awesome. I mean, again, the highlights for Batista and Yondu were amazing, and of course, Baby Groot is super funny. They did do what, like 3 or 4 post-credit scenes.
this by far had the most post-credit scenes of any Marvel movie. I've
Yeah,
ever
and
seen.
almost every single one of them was significant, but there was one that was the most significant.
Who was that old man that they had in the credits?
The old man.
So everybody in the movie, right?
That was Stan Lee at the end.
No. Everybody in the
Oh.
movie in the credits, like it was Gamora dancing, Mantis was dancing, Drax, Peter Quill, Groot, Rocket, Yondu, and then they showed the old man that almost died in the station wagon. on Earth.
I don't know,
Was that
but they
somebody
also
significant?
showed Jeff Goldblum's character from Thor Ragnarok. I saw him dancing as well.
Really?
Yeah,
didn't
I don't know why, but I saw him.
There was a lot of cameos. I mean, Howard the Duck is in this.
Howard the Duck does the post credit.
Oh
No, was that post credit?
no,
No,
it
It
was
was
right in the middle.
it was right in the middle of the movie. You're
Yeah,
right.
because he was released from the collector.
And Stan Lee was in it twice. Like when they fly
so,
by.
So I think they confirmed that theory that he is a Watcher. Is it a Watcher?
Oh, I think so. Where he
I
can
don't want to
go.
mix it up. Is Watcher DC or is that Marvel?
Shit.
I
Well,
forget.
I know what you're talking about, but like basically the reason he's in every Marvel movie
in different timelines.
in different timelines. So he's Vic's typing, looking it up. But so they kind of gave a reason why he's in all the Marvel movies. He wasn't in Logan though, but that's it's Fox anyway.
Yeah,
but
that
still,
doesn't count.
that'd have been cool if he shoved the adamantium claw through him or something like that because he was pissing him off. You never see Stan Lee die, but yeah, you see Stan Lee talking to these big those alien looking creatures and he's like explaining something to him.
Yeah, the Watcher.
He's called the Watcher. Okay. So he had a post-credit scene. That was just more for fun, more than anything else. The one though that everybody in the theater collectively gasped when she said, "That's Adam."
Yeah, Adam Warlock.
Yes.
So Adam Warlock in the comic books actually holds at one point in time an Infinity Stone.
Yes.
So, but
I
I
don't think
think Kevin Feige said that, and I think James Gunn also said that this movie has nothing to do with the Avengers.
It's very standalone-ish. In fact, I think the only thing and it's pretty thin. The only thing that would tie this to the other movies is that you see Earth with the Blob running all over the place.
Right.
That's the only thing. But other than that, this is a standalone movie. They don't have a scene where
Thor shows up.
Thor
or
shows up and
Doctor
goes,
Strange or
"You got to help me with the Infinity Stones," or one of their other characters do a complete start thinking of Infinity Stones. They didn't like they did in Age of Ultron where they shoved it in there. I hated that. But so this movie is completely like a standalone movie, and all the post-credit scenes had to do with the movie, not outside the movie. What about? There's one thing we didn't talk about, and that was the other baddies. And I can't remember what they're called, but they're all gold. They have gold paint on them and stuff. They look all weird.
Right. Yeah.
One of the guys was Ben Browder. He was in Farscape. He was the main character in Farscape.
Mm-hmm.
He was the right hand man to the queen or
I
whatever.
wasn't a big fan of that whole whole side.
You
thing.
weren't?
Not really. I mean, yeah, Rocket stole the
Batteries.
but she basically wasted the planet's entire fleet. So basically, if Thanos wanted to take over the world, he could just show up by himself and take over. There was no other fleet.
Yeah, it was just them doing these like flight simulators.
Right.
I kind of like that though, because like
No,
they're
that was
like,
kind of cool.
because they're doing it and they're like, fuck,
There was
damn
a
it,
lot. There was I think Galaga sound effects during that
Oh
scene.
God, there was all sorts of like
Pac-Man
video
thing was
game
pretty funny,
references.
yeah,
The
yeah.
Pac-Man,
But it makes
yeah.
sense again because of Peter.
Right?
It's not just thrown in there for a gag
Yeah,
joke.
he mentions Pac-Man
Well,
earlier.
let's talk about somebody else too that had a huge role in this movie. Not huge, but a lot bigger role was Sean Gunn.
Yeah, James Gunn's brother.
So most of you don't know, but the
Kraglin, I can't remember his name.
yeah, Kraglin, and he was the one Ravager that stuck by Yondu and actually helped Yondu escape. But he also plays he also plays Rocket on set.
Oh, he does all the mocap.
He does them all the motion capture, which is
Oh,
kind of
okay.
funny because he's like 6'4", and Rocket is like 3 feet tall. So yeah, there's scenes where Kraglin is talking to Rocket, and he's basically talking to himself on set.
That's awesome.
But he did a really good job too.
Yeah, they gave him a lot to do, and I like that. And he had a very nice moment.
I was upset that Tommy Flanagan got killed so early. That's the Irish guy or Irish or Scottish guy from Sons of Anarchy.
Yes.
I was kind of annoyed that he was killed so early. Yeah. I really like him.
I do like him too. He's starting to pop up in a lot of things.
I loved him in Braveheart.
Yeah,
I loved him in Braveheart.
Yeah, he was really good.
All right, so let's. I think that covers just about every.
We've
major
covered
thing.
it. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, yeah, we did a fairly spoilerific review, but there are so many gags in this thing that would just be impossible to kind of go over. But the dialogue was really funny, a lot more funnier this time. There was some poignant pieces that happened between the sisters, between father and son, between Rocket and everybody. Between Drax and Mantis.
Everybody had a chance to shine in this movie.
Oh my god! It
Everybody
goes to show
did.
you can.
I can't remember the last time I watched a movie where everybody stole the show.
You can
I
juggle.
mean, yes, Drax.
characters.
Drax stole it above everybody else, but everybody had a time to shine in this movie.
Yeah,
And that's how you do an ensemble movie like that.
that's how you do it. I mean, you just got to be a good writer. You could do that. So let's look at. Let's go into our diversity ratings then.
Is it kind of Jan Brady-ish?
I would kind of say the same. I mean, I know that they added the character of Mantis, and it's funny because I was watching the movie and I'm like, oh, like wow, an Asian, yay! And we looked her up, and she's half Russian and half Korean,
Something like that,
which is very unusual. We were just joking.
And Canadian.
In Canadian. We were just joking a little bit ago because she's blonde and she has green eyes, but she's Korean. So we were like, oh, she should have been in Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh yeah, another pull.
Another pull.
With Kurt Russell.
With Kurt Russell, and it was a Tango and Cash reunion of sorts too.
Oh yeah, but
they weren't never on screen together. Yeah. That would have been awesome if they were though. At some point,
that would have been pretty funny. Yeah,
and said some fucking funny line from the movie, but they didn't. That's okay.
Yeah, that would have been funny.
So yeah, so I would say definitely Jan Brady. I mean, it's the same. It's an all white cast. I mean, Jesus.
Well, Gamora's not, but
Gamora,
white.
Yeah.
The actress, I mean.
What about Taserface?
Taserface.
I don't remember. I thought maybe he was. I'm so.
Nope, he is really white.
Really. He had some of the funniest scenes. Rocket's just like, really, Taserface? That's what you came up with? And then when he says he's about to die and blow the ship up or whatever, and he tells the head queen, he's like, Taserface out or something like that or whatever. And she starts laughing, and he's like, so that's the last thing he sees before he dies.
Yeah, so they're laughing at his new stuff.
So yeah, Jan Brady for me, and it sounds like you're.
Yeah, Jan Brady for me as well. Rating wise, I'm gonna probably do. Oh man, like
I know this is weird. I know what you're gonna do because I feel the same way.
This is tough because I had a really great time watching this movie.
Yeah,
it was really fun. It's
there's
not as good as the first one, and I'm trying to figure. Yeah, there is a but. It's a small but because it's not as good as the first.
It's a
movie.
small butt.
Yeah, it's not as good as the first.
It's not
movie.
a tight small butt. It's like a small butt that's jiggly.
Yeah,
But
I don't. I'm
it's terrible.
I'm torn between like a 3.7 and a 4.
Yeah, I was gonna say
lightsabers.
4. I was gonna say 4 chainsaws for me.
It was just this movie was really fun. I loved how great of a time I had. I just don't know if I love this.
Well,
movie.
here's the deal. I've watched Guardians of the Galaxy probably 30 or 40 times by now. Maybe, yeah, that's about right. And I still love that movie. This one, there's parts of it that I'm sure I would fast forward. You know what I mean? That there's parts in it where I'm like, yeah, the father and son thing, it dragged a little bit. And then it got to a point where I'm like, there's something shady about this guy. Like, it was pretty predictable. So there were scenes where they were talking that I could fast forward. I'd get to the action sequences or when the people
there
are
is
interacting.
a lot of action in this movie.
Yeah, there is.
There is a ton of action in this movie.
But the Peter and the
it's not a
father
bad
stuff
thing.
it was okay. It wasn't.
Well, I think that's
you
where
know.
it kind of falls short with me. And everything, like I said, everything outside of Ego is amazing. As far as like the actors and the scenes and the dialogue go. I mean, right from the very beginning of this movie, just like the first movie, you knew you were in for like a fun fucking time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you knew that these guys, like James Gunn, still understood like why the first movie worked so well. I mean, there's a giant fucking CG battle going on behind this, and they decide like, you know what, fuck that. We're gonna concentrate on a fucking stick figure. On a fucking like a wooden fucking baby Groot to dance, and I was like, they get it. They understand why this movie works,
Yeah.
Because anybody else would have been like, "Oh, we got." I mean, and they did go bigger. They definitely went bigger. Like, they spent a lot more money on this movie, but at the same time, the core of this movie is still those main guys. It's still the relationship between the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah, and this one they all break apart into different splinters.
It still works.
Yeah, it still works.
Fucking works.
So I don't know. Based on entertainment value alone, if you were just like entertainment value, I'm like 5-6 chainsaws or whatever.
Yeah, me too.
But there's parts of it that do bring it down a little bit. So for me, I'm just going to go with 4 chainsaws, which is one of the highest ratings we've had actually this
I
year.
don't think I have it. I think I'm gonna give it a 4. I mean, this is by far the most fun I've had so far this year.
Me too, for sure.
There was a lot of movies this year that were like, I liked it, I didn't love it. Like even when I saw John Wick 2 finally, like I really enjoyed it. But this is by far the most fun I've had.
Oh yeah,
watching a
absolutely.
movie in a long time.
And I'm looking ahead. What movie could we possibly think of that would be this much fun?
Probably
Yeah.
not a lot.
Like not even really Spider-Man would be. I mean, it's going to be fun, but not like
It's gonna
this
be
fun.
I'm hoping it's awesome. Like
Yeah.
but like even looking forward to Star Wars, it's not. That's not
That's
going to
be
fun.
bleak.
That's
Yeah.
gonna be fucking, it's going to be amazing. But
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
Gonna be,
In the
it's not gonna be
opposite direction,
fun.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like I'm gonna have to go see Baywatch to maybe laugh as.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that. That could be a different kind of fun. I totally get that. But
this is like
what
like if
Justice League
Star Wars-
wish. Justice League wish it was this.
Yeah.
Fuck.
This is like if Star Wars had a sense of humor.
Well,
It's
it does, but not like this.
No, not like this.
I mean, this is like some of the jokes are so over the top, and they keep going and going, and you keep laughing harder and harder.
and when you say over the top, they're not over the top bad.
No,
They're just like, because of the characters, they work. It
Yeah.
works. Every time Drax opens his mouth and says something funny, it's not because he's trying to be funny.
It's the
because
character.
That's how Drax would react to something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just hilarious, like watching everybody's in the scene itself react to, like the whole penis scene when he's asking Ego about his dick.
he just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah,
That
and
joke
then like
just keeps
Ego
going.
actually confirms it, and Drax is like, "See, I fucking told you."
Did you?
And like you accept that because you realize what kind of person Drax. Remember they had the bet about Mantis,
Yes.
and it was like Drax bet that Mantis's antennas was so that she didn't fucking get her head chopped off in a automatic door. And then Peter's bet was that anything outside of that
he would win. And she's like, no, and he's like, damn it.
Yeah.
It's because he looks at things like
literally,
literally.
yeah.
He just
So her head would. The evolution of Mantis was that her head wouldn't get chopped off in an
Right.
automatic door.
But it's just like the first movie, and it still makes me laugh when they're like, you know, they're like, if that went over his head, and he's like, nothing goes over my head because I would just jump up and snatch it or whatever.
Yeah. And then the reaction of like Gamora's like, I'm surrounded by the biggest
idiots in
Like,
the
oh,
galaxy, which is true. Anyway, oh yeah, that's something we didn't touch upon was her and her
No, but we mentioned
and Peter's
yeah.
relationship kind of growing.
I'm
but
kind of liking that it didn't take that
it's
next
a slow
step.
burn. I
It's
like that.
I like that they're not forcing it. Like it works. It
Yeah,
works.
he didn't
Whatever's
take
go-
his mask off and say, "Hey, I'm
Like
Spider-Man."
he didn't. Or cry.
He kind of cried. Yeah,
Cry a lot.
yeah, he dances too. So
Well, that's true. But not like in Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man, that part where he's dancing, walking down the street.
fuck.
I was like, that was the first time I've ever seen like a superhero movie where I was like, I really hope they kill him.
I'm rooting for Harry now.
Right now, I wish Sandman would just kill him.
Kill
right now. Kill him right now. I really wish Venom would just kill this fucker right
He's
now.
wearing Venom's like skin. I mean, you'd think you just squeeze him to death.
The
and
whole
be
like,
overwhelmed.
the whole like Dark Peter like. I remember watching this, watching it in the theater. I'm like, oh man,
I really.
If Sandman came out right now and stabbed him in the face, I'm not sure I would cry over this. I might be okay with this.
were you like part of the people? Were you like for Dallas Bryce Howard's character? Or were you for? Because I've never been a big Mary Jane fan.
Not
Kirsten
that
Dunst.
version. Yeah,
not that version.
No, I
couldn't-
thought like Kirsten Dunst was like kind of like
Miscast a little bit.
no, her character was written really poorly in the third movie. I had no sympathy for her.
Yeah.
Where she's like, what about me? Like she basically was like, what about me or whatever, like and all this shit. And like Peter's been shit on. Like you went to high school with this guy, you barely knew his fucking name, and you lived next door to him. This guy's been shit on his entire
He
life.
can hear you fucking your boyfriend
Right.
across the street.
Right, like he's giving you like soul advice, and then you go out with fucking Flash, you bitch, right? And
'Cause
then
he has a
so
flashy car.
she's front and center of this guy getting shit on.
Do you
throughout
realize?
high school, right?
I just realized something. His Uncle Ben died because of her.
Was it real? Oh yeah, that's true.
Because he wanted the car.
Right? Yeah, fuck her.
Idiot.
So even more like, but again, like, so in Spider-Man, really quick, this is a weird tangent to be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, but like in Spider-Man 3, like, you know, she grew up watching this kid get shit on, right? And he finally gets the girl and like treats you like gold, and then all of a sudden he gets a little bit of limelight, and you can't let him fucking have that.
Yeah.
What kind of selfish bitch are you?
Right.
You got fired not because Peter's Spider-Man. You got fired because you couldn't sing a fucking note. You sucked. That's why you got fired. You're a shitty actress. Go back to being a waitress.
And then he like goes upside down and kisses the other girl, and
Yeah, like he doesn't think it's like a. All right, well,
he's like, it's not a big deal.
well, Peter should have known not to do that.
That was
that was his bad. That was his bad.
I couldn't help it because you nagged me every day.
Yeah,
Shit.
like fuck. Man, how many times am I gonna go see her fucking play? How many times do you want me to tell you you're great in it? You fucking really suck.
Yeah, you're actually really bad.
I just don't have the heart to fucking tell you. You have no idea how many times I wanted to web your mouth shut when you sang on stage.
Go watch Guardians of the Galaxy
Yeah.
Volume
On that
2.
note, go watch Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, you want to see a real superhero movie where they could actually juggle multiple characters. That you remember back in the day where they just could not do that? I mean, now it's happening all the time.
Yeah, and anytime you knew like they brought on like 3 villains or 2
You're like,
villains,
oh shit, here we go.
It's gonna get fucked up somehow.
Yeah. I'm looking at you, all the Spider-Mans.
Yeah. All right, so
Anyway. All right. Well, that's Guardians of the Galaxy in a nutshell. Awesome movie. If you haven't watched it yet, why the fuck are you listening to this? But you need to go watch it. Anyway, so I mean that's it. That's episode 80 of Chew on This, Nerds United podcast. I'm BJ.
Vic.
Until next time, folks. Chew on that.